How does she find dead people? Is she like a cadaver dog? I mean, is it kind of like
Yeah,
feisty?
right.
Sorry, but
she's like a no. She's like a Geiger counter.
well, I think actually cadaver dog probably applies.
It probably
you know,
does.
because that's their deal, is they can kind of sniff and you know, sense where bodies are buried that people haven't noticed.
That's right. She can find dead people. Of course, she has to have a geographic area given to her. She can't just say, "Oh, he's at so and so." She's not
Right.
psychic, but she can find bodies of different ages. You know, she has a terrible time going to a cemetery.
Well, you have her in one, at least in one book.
I do. I have her in cemeteries in a couple of books.
Okay.
But it's almost intolerable for her. She really could hardly survive going to the 9/11 site.
Yeah, I can see why. Well, and actually that would probably be just because the multitude of bodies would
Yeah.
send out so many signals or sense or whatever it is that's going on that it would totally confuse her. I mean,
It
a bloodhound
would.
would have a horrible time in a deal like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. But she can find them, and when she gets close enough to the body, she can relate what happened to them in the last moments of their life.
Okay. So does she work with law enforcement or does she work for private people? How does this go?
She works for both. She works for law enforcement if they pay her. She'll work for private individuals if they pay her. It's very dodgy, and she has to go in very carefully and represent herself very carefully, and that's where her brother comes in. He does the sort of the heavy lifting in the presentation for her.
So it's kind of a word-of-mouth profession. I'm trying to envision an advertisement, you know, work wanted, and
It
give her a
is.
specialty.
It's very word of mouth, and they have a website that's very carefully worded, you know.
For a Luddite like you, I am
know.
so impressed.
Well, they would almost have to. And then, of course, she's gradually accumulating people who follow her, follow where she is on a website.
Okay. You know, that it really is hard to believe in how short a time an author website has become an essential tool.
I know. I used to think it was voluntary, and now, gosh, my website just bursts at the seams.
It really does. I like your website. I've been to it. In fact, I printed off some things right here, unfortunately not in color. And one of the things that I noticed, which I find so interesting, we've mentioned that you've been doing this since 1980, that you have worked with a variety of presses, Houghton Mifflin, Walker, Scribner, St. Martin's, Berkeley.
Yeah.
So you've had, and Worldwide published your paperbacks,
They did.
and then Dell published some. So
Yeah.
you've got this big history of it. And yet, most of the time when an author leaves a series or moves to a new publishing house, the older books just kind of die away. You know, they go
Yeah.
quiet. The print run sells out. There's no incentive for the publisher to reprint them. And most of the time, you just sort of kiss Aurora goodbye. In fact, there were a lot of years when we couldn't buy any of the Aurora Tea Garden Mysteries, or for a while the Lily Bards. One of the great things about your suddenly becoming a bestseller here was Suki Stack, you know, your 20-year bestseller,
Yeah.
overnight success bestseller, is that these books have
They're
all
all
come
back in
back.
print. And you couldn't miss me if you tried to. And so I hope the market is just not too saturated. I look at the books that are going to be released this year, and I think this is just the year of Charlaine. I mean, you can't miss me if you try to miss me.
Absolutely. Although what's going for you, I think, is that the books are so different. It's not like there's this flood of, you know, all similar books by Charlaine. You've got
No,
these,
they are very different.
They are.
And that's what... that's because I took as my model, or at least I hope that's why, I took as my model writers who do that. Barbara Hambley springs to mind, Connie Willis, Tanya Huff. They can do an incredible variety. Lawrence Block. They can do an incredible variety of things, and they're all very different but good. And that is my model.
well, having survived all of that, you know, because, I mean,
Yeah.
we were talking before we started taping about today, it's virtually impossible for a new author to have the luxury of time to do this kind of career development. I mean, because, you know, you went along at a pretty low profile and presumably a fairly low earning level for quite a while. You know, that's just the way it is. But what's great is that you're you've become a brand name, and that means all this early work suddenly takes on a life of its own.
And I'm loving it.
Of course you are.
If not now, when?
Well, I'm loving it too, because I've always liked the earlier books, and it was frustrating for me as a bookseller when they went away.
Yeah, it's been a thrill to me to have Penguin Putnam so anxious to acquire my backlist and to have them all back in print. And of course, speaking as a writer, it's delightful to be earning money off something I wrote 20 years ago. I mean, I think this is great.
That's one of the great things about books, though. They have a forever shelf life. It's not like milk.
Yeah, they can.
They can.
They should. But
Yeah, it's sort of like, salting away something for the winter. But what I liked about the first page of your website, CharlaineHarris.com, is in fact, it's called the Year of Charlaine, but there's this whole long list of all these reprints coming out, and it does look as though, there's continuity of image and all these good things.
It's wonderful. It's like everything you always wanted.
Mm-hmm. And also, I think when you've got so many books, it's really helpful to have a single source like your website that lists the series and lists them in the proper order, so that a reader who's kind of blown away by, the profusion of books actually has a place to go and sort it all out.
If they are clever enough to click on bibliography, which sometimes they're not, they'll ask me,
Really?
What order should I read the books? And I'm going, click on bibliography.
It's too hard a word.
I'm afraid so.
I didn't look because, I read your books not in the finished product, but in the what's called advanced reading copy that publishers send me that lacks the artwork, but oftentimes doesn't have all of this. But they've done a very nice job here opposite the title page in putting in your series.
Yes.
Making it a little
simpler. The ones they've gotten the rights to.
I see.
Shakespeare's Christmas still isn't in there.
But that's coming along, isn't it?
I hope so.
Oh, it's not on. Oh, no, there it is, December of 2008.
Good.
So it's on the long-awaited reprint, it says right here, of The Third Lily Bard. Well, Suki just kind of, now that we've covered all the rest of this, Suki kind of what? Came from?
My desire to appeal to a wider readership.
Hey, that's a good reason.
I haven't made too many conscious decisions in my writing history. I kind of go with the flow, or I write what seems good to me or what I need to write. But when I was about to turn 50, I thought my career really isn't going much of anywhere, and I need to sit down and think about it, which was a pretty alien activity for me because I'm not big on contemplating and theorizing, and really not that big on planning.
Surveying the marketplace?
Well, I thought it would be great if I could write a book that appealed not only to mystery readers, but to romance readers who buy, a ton of books.
Right.
And science fiction readers, too. If I could write something that kind of covered the spectrum and drew them all in. And I thought, I think I would like to try to do that. So that was pretty much the germ of the idea. I thought, well, I'd like to write a book with a vampire in it. I don't want to use the vampire's point of view. I want to write about a girl who dates a vampire. So I started building Suki's character around the kind of girl I thought would date a vampire.
You mean knowing he was a vampire?
Knowing he was a vampire.
And that was Bill?
And that was Bill, and that was Suki. And of course, I didn't want to name him anything flowery because that's pretty much been done.
Yes.
So I thought, Bill. Bill is a good name for a vampire. So it all just worked together from that, and then it just kind of grew and grew and grew.
But you've got a lot more than vampires going on in here.
I do. I've got werewolves, and I've got a monad, and I've got a goblin or two.
Witches?
Witches. Many witches, and some Wiccans. There's a difference. And I've got, a half-demon lawyer.
Well,
fictional,
not right. Okay. And you put them, Louisiana's this kind of locus for this supernatural community.
Well, I figured, to me, that was kind of my joke, sort of with or on Anne Rice, because she had done southern Louisiana so thoroughly. I thought, I'll just take northern Louisiana. Nobody wants northern Louisiana, which is really a wonderful place.
It is a wonderful
And I thought,
place.
I'll just use that. And, you know, we won't have any New Orleans atmospherics. We'll have to rely on something else.